Welcome back. This is Dan Havey with CF Ninja Hacks, and today we're going to go through a question that a student of mine in my funnel code training had, and he's a new student in there, and so well, I'll go through what I told him, and then I'll show you how I fix this. And if you are interested at all in the funnel code, go to it says down at the bottom of the screen down here, getthefunnelcode.com. You can go there. If the card is not currently open when you're watching this video, it will be open soon. So just get onto the early bird list. And as soon as the cart is open, you will be notified. So his question was pretty clear. He wanted to know, first off, how they were able to do this on this page. And again, this was not built in ClickFunnels. And so, people see this stuff on these other pages and they go, how can we do this? Can we do it inside of ClickFunnels? And the answer is always yes, but it's always how much brain damage do you want to go through to get there and to build this? So my first reaction to him was, something like this, you're probably better off just building it in, some image editor of some sort and putting it on the page, because truthfully, there's really nothing in here to click on. It's just, it's a graphic essentially, so there's really no reason to build it inside of ClickFunnels, but you can, and that's what we're going to do here. So my immediate thing is I look at this and I say, because at first he did not send me a link, and so if you ever do ask a question in the group, make sure you send me a link to the page. It makes it so much easier on me. So I look at this here and I immediately say, okay, well, we got one column here, and then we got this other column over here. Well, in this column over here, we got a 2-column row, we got a 1-column row, and then we have a 4-column row. And so that kind of repeats on all of them. And then, of course, he was also asking how you get these little lines, this vertical line here and the bottom line. And that simply is you can, what was I thinking there? It's just a border around this element right here, whether it is a column, a row, a section, whatever it is. That's just a border on there that's just very faint. So immediately I'm thinking 2 columns, 1 column, 4 columns, and I start building it that way. So I'm building out all these different sections and rows, and I'm building at first a 2-column row to house this part, and then I'm building another 2-column row, a 1-column row, and a 4-column row, and I'm going to use JavaScript to inject that into this right-hand column. So you just say, okay, inside of JavaScript, you say, okay, we'll take this, what would amount to, what am I thinking here? You take the row, and so you take a 2-column row and you say, insert into this other 2-column row, but you're going to do it into the right-hand column. And I started doing that, and it was working, but I was a little clunky, and I was running into a problem where when I had like 6 of them, differentiating from one to the next, and I didn't want to do a numbering system, and so I was trying to make it as simple as possible. Well, then his name is Ashish. He came along and he showed me what he had built out as an alternative, and this is pretty basic here. You have a 2-column row as the top part. So in the left-hand column, you have an image. In the right-hand column, you have a text, and a text. So a headline, a subheadline, and a paragraph. Think of it in those terms. Then below that, he has another row here. It's probably a 4-column row. And underneath that, he has a border or a divider possibly across the bottom here. Now, in this case, what I'm looking at is, okay, did he do this by using flex? Is this actually a 2-column row? Is this actually a 4-column row? And then he used flex to line them up side by each. Well, I don't think he knows how to use flex, so chances are this is actually a 4-column row. And then this down here at the bottom, because there's not an 8-column row in ClickFunnels, there's a 6-column row. So maybe this was done as a 6-column row or a 4-column row. I'm not really sure. But again, if you don't send me a link to the page, it's really hard. All I'm doing is guessing at that point. Well, then he also sent me a link to the original page. So now we get to come in here and we start looking around, and now I start getting some ideas about how is this thing built. So again, always send me a link when you're asking me a question. So I start looking at this, and the first thing I see, of course, is that this is built on Bootstrap. You have a container element here, or more accurately, you have an element with the class of container. Inside of that, you have elements with the class of row. And then inside of that, you have elements with the class of col MD6 in this case. It can be anywhere from MD1 through MD12, and that represents the 12 columns inside of Bootstrap, and there's a lot more about that inside of my training. But that's what ClickFunnels is built on, is Bootstrap. And if you go out and you take a look at the actual, you do a view source, you look at the actual code for the page, you see right here it's Bootstrap. But otherwise, I looked at the rest of this page, and I can't make out any platform that it was built on. So I'm almost to the point of thinking that somebody hand coded this thing or used some sort of software that essentially does the equivalent of hand coding the entire thing. So, but it gave me an opportunity to start looking here and going, okay, well, what did this guy do? So we got we got these words here. Okay, there's a line break right there. Okay. And then here we got this paragraph element. And then I started going along, and I realized, wait a second, I don't need to do the fancy JavaScript version of this. I can actually build this entire thing using just CSS. So that's what I did. Let's take a look at what I have on the page. And what I started off with was a simple 2-column row. So I got a section. Let's just look at that. I just called that stack section. Then inside of there, I made 6 different rows. So we're going to have 6 different squares all lined up. And I just gave them main row 1 through 6. And the reason why was just to be able to differentiate between the rows, because we needed that in order to put in the borders properly around the edges. Otherwise, you wouldn't need that if you had no borders. And then in the columns, we don't, this was a remnant from the old version where I had this one called right column. So that one need to be named, but then we named a bunch of our elements, and it's just element 1 through 7 for each of the 6 different boxes, rows that I'm creating here. So this is element 1, element 2, element 3, etc. So as you see here in the left-hand side, I have Russell in the left column. And then in the right column, I just have a headline element that I have floated to the, or I have lined to the left. You can see here, line to the left. I have this element right here, which is an image element, and that I have aligned to the right. This is an icon element that I have aligned to the left, and etc. down the page. Text element, image, text, and this is also text, and it is aligned to the left. So then all we're going to do is we're going to apply a little bit of CSS to this. So the first thing I did is I came in and I said, okay, well, I need to get this and this both on the same line. Well, in the training, I go in depth into the difference between display of block and display of inline. So the difference between block level elements and inline level elements. And with one simple little line of code, we can make all the elements on this page, or more accurately, all the elements inside of this row, we can make them all inline block elements. And so we'll just come down here and we will turn that back on. I just had a little slash in there to kill it. And now what you see happened, let me turn that back off. In here you see this is a block level element, and you can tell that because it goes all the way across the column. So it will take up the entire width of its bounding element. In this case here, the bounding element is the column. And the same here with all these elements, they all take up full width inside of the column. But by making them inline level elements, they only take up the amount of width needed to actually hold the element itself. And so that's what we have represented here now. So what we want to do then is, because you're saying, okay, well, these are not quite in the right place. Well, we want to float some of them to the right. So elements 2, 6, and 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 6, and 7 get floated to the right. And as you can imagine, number 4 and 5 get floated to the left. Now, in this case here, Truthfully, I probably would not have had to put in the float left because it's naturally going to float to the left. So honestly, really didn't need that. And then, of course, we got a little bit of a spacing issue here. So let's deal with that. We'll make element number 5. We'll give that 25 pixels of left margin. And you saw that move that over. And then number 7, we will give 25 pixels of right margin. Now, this here is actually number 7. Even though it comes in the way it does, this is 7, this one is 6, and I can show that to you by turning this back off. Well, maybe not. Let me see here. Let's kill that line too. Okay, so this here was 6, and this one was 7. Just by the nature of how floating works, they don't necessarily line up in the order that you would think so. So they don't line up perfectly right. You go in, swap the order around, boom, you got it. It's all lined up properly. So there we go. Now we have everything lined up the way we had in our original, which was here. So everything, we got our little headline, we got an image, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, my mock-up is not perfect. I did it pretty quickly. So that's what we have here. We got everything where we want. Now we have to line them up next to each other, 2 by 2, all the way down. And the first thing we have to do is we got to scroll back up to the top here. And we want to say that with the container inner, so we are inside of our section we called here stack section. And inside of there, we want to go to the part of the element inside of it, which is the container inner. It's the first inner part of the element. It's very first. So you got the stack section, very inner part of that is a container inner. Inside of that will be all of the rows. And we want to say, make it 90% width on the page. I could do 100, but it got too wide, so I just made it 90%. You can make it 80%. And as you're going along here and you're building this for yourself, you're going to realize, okay, well, the text sizes, you gotta tweak the text sizes. You got to tweak the sizes of the images, get everything lined up properly, of course, once you get it in there. And then what I said here is to display flex and flex wrap of wrap. Now you're looking at it going, okay, well, it didn't do anything. It gave us the width of 90%. But the problem is at this point, the row is 100% of its containing element. So the row goes all the way across that width of 90%. And so it can't wrap, it can't display next to each other because it's too wide. So what we need to do is we need to make that less wide. So we make it all 50%. And as you see now, it kind of squirted over to the left-hand side. But now as soon as we turn flex back on and we go flex, we got a problem, is lining them all up next to each other and jamming all 6 of them across on the screen. Well, we don't want that, so we just say flex wrap, and now it will wrap it. So once it gets, once it takes up the 50%, then the 50%, it'll wrap down to the next line. The way it was doing it before is it has to put all 6 of them on the same line. Well, obviously we don't want that. And so now we have all of them stacked over the top of each other. And then the very last thing we have to do is put in those little borders. And so I had each row here has its own title, main row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, whatever. I forget how many I have. And so now what we did is we just said border right, 1 pixel solid, and this color. So we got this line running right down the center. And then for some of them, we needed a border across the bottom. Again, not for all of them, because the original did not have a line across the top, did not have a line around the outside edge, around the bottom, anything like that. So I tried to make it as close to the original as possible. So let us just save this page and we can preview it very quickly. And this is the result. Again, you might want to make it narrower. You may want to, change the font sizes and stuff, but this gives you an idea how you can do something like this and do it 100% just with CSS, or you could do it with JavaScript if you want to go that route or need to go that route. And a lot of times you do need to go that route because it's not quite as simple as this one was. But again, this is all the stuff I teach in my course. Teach you how to work with the block level elements, the inline elements, and how to float items, how to line up items, how to center them, how to do absolute positioning and fixed positioning so elements are in certain places on the screen or certain places within other elements. And so there's all kinds of cool things you can do on layout once you learn basic CSS, and more importantly is how to apply that CSS to ClickFunnels structure. Because you saw the structure over here of what this looks like. This looks nothing like the HTML structure for ClickFunnels. So you have to be able to look at something like we had here, look at this, and then translate it in your mind and go, okay, well, how am I going to take what I'm seeing here on the screen and translate that into ClickFunnels already preset HTML and elements and get it to look like what I want. So if you have any questions, just let me know.